Howdy, friends. Are you waking up every morning wishing that the legislative session would close and wish that they would perhaps close next year, or perhaps only go in session every 2 years or 3 years or 4 years? We've been hammered this year. I can't help but wonder if our legislature is truly ignorant, if they've been bought off, heavily influenced by corporate interests. Have you guys seen the amount of lobbyists at the legislature this year? It's almost like they were gremlins and somebody fed them after midnight or watered them or watched them duplicate. Got all these young kids out there that are probably paid quite well for these corporations to be able to influence our legislators. There's probably 10 to 1 down there lobbyists to citizens. And where's the citizens lobby anyway? I think it's probably time that we have one of those, or at least one to every corporate lobbyist they have. You know, when I ran for office in 2008, I ran on the platform of reverse legislation. I had suggested that the Idaho legislature, if it has to be in session every year, that it's in session 1 year to make law, I guess, and the other one to be able to reverse legislation to streamline the statutes and make them less arbitrary or conflicting. You can find one law in there that actually really isn't quite as bad as something else, but completely is in opposition to the law that somebody created several years earlier. In addition to trying to get back to the principles of our government, where the government actually empowers its people rather than itself by continuing to restrict the rights of the people and closing private businesses and raising taxes without spending and the rest of it. We have parental rights acts where legislatures are trying to tell us that we have a right to our family. That is not your job to tell me that I have a right to my family. That's a God-given right, something that you don't have any right to give or take away. Why can't you get that concept? And then we have the naturopathic licensure bill. Completely strips the empowerment of private businesses, allows them to infiltrate with creating, expanding government, creating corporate bodies. Unaccountable, self-governing, which means unaccountable. I've already talked about that. And then there's a bunch of legislation. Well, if you go to the legislative website, you scroll and scroll and scroll, and there's more laws and more laws and more laws. And somehow they tell us, or law enforcement will tell us, well, ignorance of the law is no excuse. That's ridiculous. That term was used for common law, in the fact that there was no excuse that you lacked common sense to be able to know that you shouldn't be driving without tires or doing something stupid. And then we have this latest rant is on Senate Bill 1067. This is all the rant, right? You guys are sending me emails and all of that, but I just couldn't sit still on this. I mean, I'm looking at this, and it says on September 9th, 2014, Obama signed Public Law 113-183, the Preventing Sex Trafficking and Strengthening Families Act. Well, let's forget about the fact that the federal government, through the HHS and through the child welfare, has been child trafficking. Let's just forget about that just for a moment, shall we? So now the federal government is going to tell the states, well, you can't sex traffic. We're the only ones that can do it. The law amends 466F of the Social Security Act, requiring all states to enact any amendments to the Uniform Interstate Family Support Act, officially adopted September 30, 2008, by the National Conference of Commissioners on Uniform State Laws. Uniform state laws? The National Conference of Commissioners? Where did this delegation of authority happen? And at what point in time? And who authorized it? Referred to as the UIFSA 2008. Among other changes, amendments integrate the appropriate provisions of the Hague Convention on the International Recovery, Child Support, and other forms of family maintenance. The Hague You mean the same elected officials that swear, I pledge allegiance to that flag and I solemnly defend and support the Constitution of the United States of America and the state constitution and the laws of the state of Idaho? Not that that's not a contradiction in itself. So let me think. Constitutions are meant to be able to preserve the rights and the freedom for people for future generations, right? So that's one part of the oath. And then you have the state legislature that writes laws that continually restrict the rights of the people in complete contradiction to the Constitution, and they're saying that there's no contradiction? Do you see how ludicrous this is? So, evidently, the lawyers are engaged in the public law writing and have turned the world inside out and upside down. Our government no longer works for the American people, and that includes the Idaho state government as well as the federal government. Duh. So, let's look at this a little bit deeper. So, we've got from Vicki Davis. She wrote An Institutionalized Corruption in the Spotlight. Man, she does some great work. If you don't know her, you need to go to channelingreality.com because she's awesome. Basically, Senate Bill 1067, which is the one I was talking about this morning, submitted by the Judicial Rules Committee, an act relating to the Uniform Interstate Family Support Act, amending Chapter 10, Title 7, Idaho Code by the addition of a new section of 7-1004A Idaho Code to provide for the application of the chapter to resident of foreign country and foreign support proceedings. Proceedings, a legal term meaning court. So, are we going to set up separate tribunals for this? And who's going to be the supranational governing authority over this bill? Will there be an expansion of government? There has to be. And so will this diminish the state's rights? Not that the state legislature cares about utilizing any of those rights, but does it utilize those rights, or does it diminish those rights? Sure, it does. Anytime that the states have to conform with the federal government, that actually is forcing conformity to a Hague, an international global government. Hey, you put that in there with trade partnerships and the CON and everything else, and we've got global one world government written all over it. You know the really cool thing about this, though, is that the states have money to gain by it, and that's why the governor wants to hear it. $46 million, I guess, from the federal government. $46 million is allegedly chicken feed compared to what the bill will cost the state. It will cost $46 million to implement the bill. Idaho taxpayers will have to pay for international lawyers to deal with the international cases. Idaho taxpayers will have continue to pay for the refugee expenses and have to acquiesce to foreign law that will cost Idaho its sovereignty. And then to top it all off, we have a lady that she was one of the good ones. I don't know if she still is or not. She says, I'm sorry that I missed this bill. I didn't read the bill, so it just slipped by. We will write a bill to counter it next year. So what happens between this year and next year? The incremental erosion of our freedoms, ladies and gentlemen, is pushing us to the point of no return. Many of us believe that we're there already. And the fact that I can go around and I can talk to people and so few people even care. They'll tell you to your face, I don't pay attention. Oh, I vote. Yeah, I vote for Butch Otter. Why? Because I grew up with him. He's a great guy. He's a great roper. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, I don't pay attention to current events, though they're not of interest to me. But I do have kids, and I'm not really concerned about their freedom either because they can fight for their own. I thought, yeah, that's another American principle, isn't it? Where the generation before us was the one that fought and preserved the freedom for the generation after it. Well, we've just enslaved our children by this kind of an idea. And if we don't stand up and take care of it now, not only will our children not have a future, but the future that we have will be significantly diminished as well. So anyway, this 1067 is a nightmare. You guys pay attention to it. I know I'm probably late in talking about it, but it's super important, and I had to rant, and I just felt like being on video. So Anyway, God bless you guys. Love you. Have a great day. Bye.